Well, good evening everyone. It's wonderful to see you here. My name is Professor James Harrison. I'm the Director of Research at the Sydney College of Divinity, which is where you are. Tonight's seminar, Relating Science and Religion, is organised by the Australian Institute for Orthodox Christian Studies on behalf of the Science and Orthodoxy Around the World project. The acronym is SAW. The latter is run by the Institute for Historical Research of the National Hellenic Research Foundation at Athens, and it is funded by grants from the Templeton World Charity Foundation. Sponsored by the SAW project from the Templeton grant, tonight's seminar consists of 3 talks offered by, first, the Reverend Professor Dennis Edwards, Professorial Fellow at the Institute for Religion and Critical Inquiry in the Faculty of Theology and Philosophy in the Australian Catholic University at the Adelaide campus. Second, Professor Peter Harrison, who is a Fellow of the Australian Academy of the Humanities, an Australian Laureate Fellow, and he is the Director of the Institute for Advanced Studies in the Humanities at the University of Queensland. And third, Proto-Presbyter, Dr. Doru Kostaki, co-founder and president of the Australian Institute for Orthodox Christian Studies, the organiser of the present event. The project, Science and Orthodoxy Around the World, of which we shall hear more in a minute from Mr. Nikos Livanos, gathers Orthodox and non-Orthodox researchers from throughout the world. Scholars, that is, with an interest in how the Orthodox Christian tradition articulates the rapport between contemporary science and theology. The Australian participants in the project are Professor Peter Harrison, as a non-Orthodox expert in the field, and Dr. Doru Kostaki, as an Orthodox scholar with an interest in the field. This seminar is the only official SOW event in Australia. Tonight we shall listen to 3 lectures which present updates and reflections on the rapport between science and religion. First, Peter Harrison will address the issue of Christian origins of the modern science. His talk will be followed by Dennis Edwards' talk on divine transcendence and divine humility. The last presentation by Doru Kostaki refers to the kenotic God, the principle of synergy, and the evolutionary universe. The night will conclude with a discussion and a supper, and we anticipate that the question time will be about 45 minutes. Each speaker will be speaking around about 20 minutes. But before we introduce our 3 main speakers, it's now my pleasure to invite Mr. Nikos Livanos, a PhD candidate at the University of Thessaly, and he is the Research Assistant in Byzantine Research at the Institute of Historical Research, the National Hellenic Research Foundation at Athens, and he is the official SOW representative here. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you very much, Professor. On behalf of Project Science and Orthodoxy Around the World and its director, Efthymios Nikolaidis, I would like to thank you all for being here. I would like to thank the Australian Institute of Orthodox Christian Studies for this magnificent organization, and especially Reverend Doru Kostaki for his work. Would also like to thank Reverend Dennis Edwards and, of course, Professor Peter Harrison, who is member of the scientific committee of the project. We all know that there has been a large debate in science and religion especially in what we call the Western world, in Western Europe, in the United States, here in Australia. And there have been many talks for decades now concerning various issues. So, some time ago, in 2012, Professor Efthymios Nikolaidis came to me and said, we have to do something on what is going on, science and religion, throughout the centuries in our world here in Greece where we were, to study the texts, Byzantine texts, starting from late antiquity until the modern era, and see where we stand. So we initiated a project called Narcissus, Nature and Religion in Southeastern European Space, where we collected a variety of texts from late antiquity until the 20th century in order to study these complex and diverse relations between science and religion, we would call it today, but not necessarily in older times, and that's why we call it nature and religion, because science is a very modern and very technical word, and it cannot be applied to civilizations that existed many centuries ago. However, in our mind, we pretty much have the image of the relationship of man with nature, how he correlates with the technology of their own times. And what we did was to collect, do a research first and collect a variety of texts and see what these relations were. And in many ways, of course, you could visit the site and see there's much more work being done. The project is continued as we speak by other researchers. And there has been a magnificent, I would say, pendulum movement between views and stances throughout the centuries in the way that man sees nature in what later became the Orthodox world, the Eastern Christian world. This has been the main topic of study at the Institute of Historical Research, the National Hellenic Research Foundation in Athens, Greece. Now, this is an example of the database of the text we collect, the people involved. It's amazing how many people in different identities throughout the centuries, and which demonstrate this diversity in stances. But the question is, where do we stand today? And this question came out of the results of this project that showed more than anything else that in the Orthodox world, although there has been a dialogue, a science and religion dialogue in various topics, it is not really organized as it has been in the West. And we thought that, well, we should see what is the status of this dialogue today, what is the status of the relationship between science and religion in the Orthodox world today, and, well, what is actually going on in this field. So we started the project Science and Orthodoxy Around the World, funded by the Templeton Foundation, which we cannot thank enough for its support, and of course its funds, without which all this can happen, and the research. We have 10 researchers throughout the world who research texts in various languages and study the views and opinions by people who are engaged in the science and religion dialogue during the past 30 years. So what we do is that first, we map the dialogue. By mapping the dialogue, we mean that we have a database collecting texts, books, papers and journals, even internet articles, anything that actually presents the views of all those involved in the science and religion debate in the Orthodox world today. Furthermore, we thought that it would be a good idea to give future research, and present research of course, a number of interviews by people involved in the dialogue, in order to gather these views and opinions, not only through their work, but through what they have to say to us today, at this standing moment. And this is something we'll collect. We will use some interviews, perhaps, for a documentary that we're making. I'll talk about this later on. And of course, we, on our website, we are gathering various texts by whoever wants to publish something on science and religion, but mostly texts appealing to a wider public and demonstrating views and opinions. The other aspect of the project is advancing the dialogue. Now, advancing the dialogue does not mean that we guide it. This is not our intention. What we want to do is to give a platform for those who want to be involved, for those who have something to say, on all the topics relating to science and religion. So we are organizing 3 major international conferences in Athens, one already accomplished in February 2017. It was quite successful. Many people came from throughout the world, especially the Orthodox world, the Orthodox countries, to give their opinions on various topics, and there was a wonderful discussion that took place. And I'm happy to announce that the outcomes of the conference will be published soon in a new series started soon for science and orthodoxy, and will be a series of books, not only the conference proceedings of all 3 conferences, but a series of books from people who will want to write something on these topics. So we also have 2 workshops in St. Petersburg. It took place a few days ago. And in Belgrade next year, 45 papers commissioned by the project, by people who would like to put down their opinions on paper. And of course, we have 20 grants for younger scholars or younger researchers to publish papers in peer-reviewed journals on topics of their own choice. We already gave 10 grants right now. We had a call for 10 grants. It was quite successful. Amazing papers, which we will soon see, I think, by the end of the year. And what is our main purpose is to put the science and religion dialogue in the Orthodox world within the wider spotlight of the science and religion dialogue throughout the world. It's important to have the dialogue in the Western, what we call the Western world, hear the views and opinions of the dialogue that exists but is not heard, perhaps in countries of where the Orthodox Church is dominant. And we intend to bring together scholars and thinkers from around the world to discuss the issues. The third part is public understanding. We want everything that is discussed in the project to be discovered by the people, by anyone interested in the science and religion dialogue, not just by scholars. It is not something that is taking place only between scholars. We want people to hear views and opinions. We want people to hear the main participants of the dialogue and to be part of it, everyone produce their own opinions and agree or disagree. For this, of course, we have a series of lectures throughout the world, not only in Athens, Belgrade, Bucharest, London, Moscow, and of course Sydney. And the web portal, which has a variety of texts that anyone can read, and a full-length documentary film, which will be disseminated, hopefully, in 2019 to television channels and freely for whoever wants to download it and see it. And of course, we will have workshops and lectures intended for people who actually, what we say, live the science and religion dialogue, educators, parish priests, medicinal doctors, people who actually confront problems that are within the scope of the Science and Religion dialogue today. So this is pretty much the Science and Orthodoxy Around the World project. I would like to thank you again for your presence here tonight.
Thank you, Nikos, for telling us about the exciting developments in the SOW project and the things we can look forward to and indeed learn today.